So thank you very much for coming. This is very loud. This is very loud. So yeah, so let's go down. So how's that? That bit better? Alright. Yeah, so but tonight's going to be more a bit of a story about sort of Dan and I and what we've done over the last maybe 10 years, and what it led up to getting into the blockchain industry, and how we successfully launched a token over in the crypto marketplace, and how we launched a exchange on the 0x protocol. And I think the best way that anyone can learn about these things is just from our own experience. And so it's more just going to be sharing from what we've done, and from there, hopefully it inspires you to see what you guys can do, or ask questions. And if we feel that we have enough knowledge in that area, then we can try and help answer that question, and maybe that can inspire you to take the next action in wherever you're trying to get to. And what else? So the other thing is that this meetup is being sponsored by Avestix, which is this innovation lab here that you see. They're focusing on blockchain, and the more I talk to them, they realise that there's also technologies beyond blockchain that they want to focus on as well. And it's also being sponsored by Nxt.legal, which is a legal firm that I've just become a director of. And one of the issues with legals and blockchain was that I've worked on sort of many teams where we've been always asking for the legals for advice, and it's always been a very disconnected conversation. So when the opportunity came up last year to actually work inside a legal firm, a financial services legal firm that deals with a lot of bulk property building and property development in Queensland and across the world, I think they're the eighth largest in Australia. It made a lot of sense to sort of like migrate over to a legal firm. So I don't offer any legal advice. I'm not a lawyer, but I am working side by side directors who are lawyers and who have at the top of their field doing that. And it's actually been amazing to see actually what they do and realise that we can automate a lot of this. So thank you very much, Dan, for putting this event on as well. So Dan has sponsored all the beer, all the food. These t-shirts, and
a few t-shirts to give away. Oh wow!
And thank you very much for all coming on and hearing the story. So I'm going to switch seats now, and I think that the best thing is, well, how do you want to go first? The whole point of this is to help you guys launch your own token. Do you want to go through MetaMorph first and explain that?
Sure.
I think so, yeah.
I think it might be better without the microphone.
Without the microphone? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
is that better?
Feedback.
Is it not good? Yeah. That's off. Alright,
Okay.
go for it.
Hope I have a loud enough voice.
Yeah,
I think I
that's
do.
perfect. It's fine.
So the question is, what is MetaMorph, really?
Are you recording?
I am recording, yeah.
So we'll go through, I guess, the background of where we are today and how we got here, and I guess where we're going to go, and hopefully through a lot of the momentum that we're currently building, the projects that we have in mind that are, and some in which we are already working on. We believe that there's going to be a lot more happening. And of course we want to really serve the Australian community. We're making that one of the number one driving forces this year as well. Because Australia, of course, doesn't have a solution to decentralised exchanges as yet. So we're going to make that one of our number one goals. But what we'll do, we'll go through me and Tom, how we met. So I come from an internet marketing background, software development. I've ran successful businesses in the past, outsourcing businesses as well. Me and Tom met about 10 years ago. We did some webinars together. We ran basically a few different projects together in the past that were fairly successful, but mainly as well just getting to know each other and getting to know our strengths and weaknesses, so that later down the track we could possibly do some business together. And it just so happened that Tom was actually getting involved with blockchain. He mentioned Ethereum to me 7 years ago. In fact, he used to come around to my house, and instead of cracking open a beer or watching a movie, he'd basically say, hey, where's your TV? I want to show you a presentation. And he was actually telling me about Ethereum 7 years ago.
Before it launched or before it was live, it was just his idea. I think, 6 years or so, maybe it was 7
Yeah. Yeah, it was probably at least 6 years ago. Yeah.
6 years ago.
And that was when Ethereum was $1 or something at that point, and can't remember the price, so I wasn't even looking at it, and I don't even think Tom was. He was just more interested in the technology.
Well,
And
what happened for me is I got officially banned from Facebook. So I was looking for a platform that would supersede Facebook. Because in a previous business, I built some Facebook software that allowed small businesses to automate their Facebook marketing. But it kind of sort of dug into Facebook pay-per-click profits. And so they just one day, I was living in China at the time. I just went to my Facebook account, to log in, see how my friends did to it. And I was like, oh wow, I've been turned off. I've been literally switched off. And I couldn't believe that, they wanted to do that they would just switch me off like that. So that's what set me on my path to realise I want a social network or an infrastructure where, and I knew there was lots of other disconnects like with the money system and stuff. I was actually actively looking for infrastructure around the planet that would allow for a social network that's more than a social network, a payments gateway system, or some type of protocol that would allow us to sort of evolve beyond past Facebook. So it came out of a serious need basically that I wasn't allowed on Facebook, and so then that's what allowed me to discover Ethereum early on, and Bitcoin as well. Yeah, of course. Yeah, so people get switched off. So just because of people's opinions about
So
society.
luckily you are the one without a Facebook profile.
Yeah, I got one now, but I didn't have one for 4 years.
I mean, we've driven so much past Facebook these days in terms of what's possible. Like you look at Telegram now and LinkedIn and Twitter, how they're surpassing. I mean, unless you want to look at what your friend ate for lunch, then Facebook really has no kind of value in terms of business. People typically they'll go to LinkedIn or maybe Twitter. You can get a lot more out of it, and that's my personal preference. And I think again, because we're going to be talking about the success of MetaMorph as well, and even if you guys have your own token or thinking of having your own token and how you can make that successful as well, the options of, say, for example, the marketing side, what would work best for you guys, and how we can help you there as well. But definitely, we're only giving advice. We're not really, saying we can.
General advice.
Yeah, we can, and we're also want to just make it, clear that we're here to help, but in a way that mainly for educational purposes and to get you guys to understand how it all works and that sort of thing. So, yeah, should we go straight into the listing of tokens then, or?
I think you need to show what MetaMorph is, the interface.
Sure. I think, has anybody here seen the exchange yet, or the platform itself? Okay, so how it works, and our original roadmap was to design a decentralized exchange platform that, let me just quickly go to this link, in fact. Okay, we wanted to make the first ever decentralized exchange that could not only swap a coin seamlessly, but also trade. So you'll have that basic functionality of just swapping, but then also trading, which is more advanced, right? So those who want to trade on an advanced level, they can, and then also have things such as your wallet, check your portfolio, and reports and things like that for accounting. So there really isn't a lot out there. I mean, there are bits and pieces of products that are out there, like you can look at Shapeshift, for example. They were, you know, a great platform, and they still are for swapping tokens. However, they just recently introduced KYC, and there's well, we won't go down that path, but and so that was our initial vision, to take a bit of what works and make it into one, and have a few different products in one, so to speak. So the exchange thing, being the morphing, is something that we really see a big need in, even in the future, and I believe it will evolve. And the exciting thing we're looking at during Q2 is social trading, so being able to swap tokens in a chat style environment, and I believe that is going to be a really big thing in terms of what is possible, because most people are human, they enjoy interactivity, and you know, let's face it, nobody likes looking at candlesticks all day, unless you're a really experienced hedge fund trader or whatever. So
autistic.
Yeah, or maybe autistic.
Do you
So-
have margin trading or?
So no, well, yeah. So we're looking at that down the track now. This is our trading section, which for most is a great entry point, and it works fantastic for those who know how to use the platform. You've got your order books here, your buys and sells. Let me just go through there. So this is what a typical trading platform would look like on a decentralized level. And
Excuse me, can you
yeah.
explain like decentralized exchange, because I'm quite confused. So far, I'm still
okay, so the differences between decentralized is where we don't store your tokens at all on our platform. You, the user, will hold the tokens, whether that's in your MetaMask wallet, MyEther wallet level, or say Ledger or Trezor or something like along those lines. And even though you're using your tokens on our platform to buy and sell, they're still not sitting on our exchange. They're used as a, our platform is used as a portal just to display those orders, and when they're there ready to sell, that's handled by the relayers. And it's a really fantastic technology, and it's something that's going to evolve in the coming years. And the only reason why it hasn't evolved so much, and people are still using centralized exchanges today, and again I'll clarify on what the centralized exchanges are. But for the decentralized part, it's still a little bit unscalable in the sense that it's purely relied on setting up your wallet and these sorts of things, which becomes very techy for most people. But as a centralized exchange, you just simply sign up using your email, and that's it, you're already in, right? But the downfalls of that is, you know, when you send your tokens to a centralized exchange, I mean, you look at the past year, there's been like 6 or 7 really popular exchanges that have been hacked. And the reason is because those tokens are then stored on a cold wallet level. And so, yeah, it's really one of those differences. Okay, so it's really, yeah.
The big thing is that when we decided to make an exchange, I was thinking in my mind, well, I don't really want to go to bed knowing that at any point I or Dan could be hacked, and then we'd be put in jail for losing a bunch of people's funds. And so that was like, it's kind of like for me it was like a stress management of stress and personal stress that I'm going to carry, or baggage that I'm going to carry. And maybe I could just do one thing wrong and we would lose access to, you know, the keys that access most of people's wallets or something. Like, there was one guy that died just recently, and he's lost a bunch of people's money, and he just died. Like that just happened like literally a month ago.
Or he lost the coins and it said he died.
Or the one
It's a scam.
yeah. Well, the one in, I think the one in New Zealand is an inside job. I think the guy's just, you know, my personal opinion is that he's just said he's got hacked, but really he's just taken off of everyone's money. So in terms of like trusting somebody, you have to trust somebody with a centralized exchange, and you know, what's to say that they're going to change their mind and just, you know, maybe they've got no money to run the exchange and they just need to do a runner, which I was part of other systems in the dark net, and those systems went down, and you know, just did a run with my tokens, like my bitcoins like 5 years ago. So I just got an experience of that as well. Like, so I was like, well, you know, what's going to be trusted in the long term is these decentralized systems. So you might as well play a long term game now.
Yeah, and that's right.
And do the better, but do the more secure thing. So you always own your own. You always have. You're the only one that ever has access to your tokens. You can't trust us or the developers or anyone. That's so in the end, decentralized will just be the most trusted environment for everyone.
So if it's like a Nxt.20 token, does it take like 30 minutes for the transaction to go through because you have to wait for it to the TX to go through on Ethereum?
That's true on Ethereum, yeah.
So it can take a long time depending. That's like one of the downfalls. Is there a way to like counter that to make it fast?
Oh, it'll get really fast in the future. Like I'm seeing pretty amazing things on other technologies which we need to migrate over to. But the 0x protocol will get faster and faster as well. I think over the next 2 years we'll see decentralized trades getting pretty quick, like within a second.
Yeah, I agree.
That's one of the scalability issues, that a lot of these decentralized exchanges are having is that as well, where you can't really just make a trade and be done with it. You have to go through the mining and setting up your wrapping. So in a particular example, with this decentralized exchange, can everybody see the wrapped Ethereum area just here, which is the that little box area here?
And the reason why it's wrapped is because the Ethereum token was created during a time when ERC20 standard didn't exist. It just didn't exist. No one had ever spoken about it yet. We didn't talk it into existence. So now we have to go and wrap Ethereum and put it in the ERC20 standard. So that's why they call it.
Yeah. So we won't go down this track too much in this particular session because that's a whole new topic, and the whole trading side. I mean, we'd have to spend a good amount of time on that, but just wanted to show you briefly the wrapping scenario. So with decentralized, again, I don't know if it's fair to call that scalability issue or not, the whole wrapping scenario, but it is something that most people get a bit annoyed by or having to go through. It's an extra step, but maybe down the track there might be a different solution where that isn't possible. And then also they've got the WBTC, which is the wrapped Bitcoin, which recently came out as of last week. We just integrated that, so that hasn't got any volume as of yet, but that is basically a pair there that users can wrap their Bitcoin into what is called WBTC, which is wrapped Bitcoin, and then from there they can start trading. So because the other thing too is you can't actually exchange Bitcoin on our platform, and most other decentralized exchanges, they won't actually have that option unless it's something like an Ethereum based or ERC20 standard. So wrapped BTC is a ERC20 standard, and sitting on Ethereum, yeah.
Because Ethereum came out pegged to the Bitcoin. Well, what happens is people put Bitcoin into a smart contract, the Ethereum holding account, and then they release Ethereum ERC20 tokens so that they trade on the Ethereum network. Yeah, so and that happens with all the other non-Ethereum tokens. Yeah. So it's just a way that you can start trading, other scarcity-based tokens from other platforms on Ethereum.
But 97% of the, community, economy, ecosystem, whatever you want to call it, are still using centralized exchanges, and really decentralized is still fairly new in the sense that it still hasn't grasped the majority, which I think this year will be a big one because security tokens, and that's a whole new topic, but security tokens will be mostly traded on decentralized platforms.
Probably. I mean, Binance, you know, the biggest exchange in the world, has just announced that they're
Exactly.
going decentralized. So, you know, they're obviously worried about it as well. They're the biggest target in the world. So I think, yeah, we're just going to see a huge wave of it now, and we're just on the bleeding edge. Pretty cool, mate.
So we'll get on with how to list your token on an exchange. So firstly, you want to determine if you would like to list on a centralized or decentralized exchange. And again, you know, that sort of covers what we've been talking about. Number two, gather all the relevant information so you can submit to exchanges one by one and easily. Meaning, you know, it's a good idea to have all the, like, if you've got a token and you want to submit to, you know, 100 different exchanges, it's much easier to have all that information there saved in a Word file, like, you know, the token supply, the contract address, who the team member links are, and, you know, all that sort of stuff, just in one file, and then you can copy and paste that very easily to every single exchange that's out there. Most of them these days actually charge for listings, so it's not like, you know, there are many free ones out there anymore. I mean, IDEX are a free one though, but depending if your token is accepted on there or not, that's another story. But yeah, that's the link if anybody wants to do a screenshot and save that for where you can, you know, access all different kind of exchanges and then submit your token on those. And normally on the website themselves, I'll have on the footer area just submit token, so you can go through and do it that way. Then number three is deploy the token with legal opinions. Yeah, again, Tom is the man when it comes to legal stuff.
Well, not really. I just work at a legal firm. But yeah, like if the moment once you got a token deployed on Ethereum, and we only know how to do it on Ethereum. I mean, I've done it on EOS, but that's, you know, not many exchanges compatible with EOS at the moment. But yeah, once you do have a token deployed, and you want to, you know, the next step is like, well, you want to get it on an exchange, so you email them and say, oh yeah, I want this token on an exchange, and then the next thing they hit you with is like, oh yeah, well, what's your legal opinions on this token? You know, what documentation have you got from lawyers that say what this token means? Is it a security? Is it a utility token, or is it a currency, or is it an, you know, asset or whatever? And then that's, you know, for me, I was like, well, I don't actually understand what this guy means, what these exchanges mean. But yeah, you have to go through a process and get lawyers to bless your token and tell you what it really is. And then, because they need some type of, I was actually at another project where we had to, exchanges at the moment are really, really worried about what they've got listed on their marketplaces. And so they're trying to get always second opinions from lawyers or regulators or people who have influence in society, so that they can say if someone comes and sues them, or the government comes and cracks them down, they've got a bunch of proof to say, well, we did go and get second opinions or third opinions. So they want to provide as much documentation and have it on record to show that they've done all their due diligence that they could have possibly done at that time, should they find themselves in court or being regulated or some sort of thing. So the more documentation that you can throw at them that looks like it's got authority, especially from a legal firm that specialises in financial services, you know, the less uphill battle that you're going to have getting your tokens on exchanges. That's been my experience.
Yeah, and my experience, the second most important thing for exchanges to be listed on is the community following that you have. So if you have a very large following, even if you're not on any other exchanges and you're just starting from scratch, if you've got, say, you know, let's say 10,000 members and in a Telegram group, and you know, half of those are active or whatever, but basically they just want to see a very large community that's active, and they know that will entice or help them, because it's really about a win-win. A lot of these exchanges just want big communities to start trading on their platform as well, so they can get more usage.
And they play little games like, oh yeah, like, you know, if you go and tell, you know, they put a blog post up about your token, and they say, okay, go and tell your whole following about this blog post and get them to vote to want it on that exchange. Because all they're trying to do is just drive more free traffic. YouTube to drive more free traffic. So you play a lot of games as well.
Yeah, that's right. And that is the link there. I just decided to click on it anyways. This is a list of all the top exchanges that are listed on CoinMarketCap. It was actually listed from 1 to 100. When I clicked, I'll refresh there. Binance is number 1, obviously.
What's CoinMarketCap been at? I mean, what's MetaMorph token been at its peak?
So we aren't currently listed there yet because we just launched.
Not been on CoinMarketCap.
Oh, for the token itself. Yeah, I'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, right now we're looking at these top exchanges which, you know, if you did have your own token, you could list on. And what I would suggest is ones that have a high number of markets. So if you click on, say, number of markets, it'll start listing those exchanges and by, you know, the highest amount of tokens that are listed. Because, you know, obviously if you want to submit on, let's say this exchange, there's only 36 tokens listed, there's a very low chance that they're going to list you unless it's a really good token. So you'd have a much better chance listing on these exchanges that have a lot of tokens. So HitBTC has 776 tokens, Yobit 491, Binance 446. So yeah, and so forth. But yeah, and a lot of these, you know, once you submit, they'll hit you up with a very nice fee there. Usually,
What do you reckon the average fee is? They're all the exchanges are actually making money, so they'll charge those tokens like, you know, some of them like 10 Bitcoin, some of them like.
No, actually more than that. Last year, the year before, last year in 2017, my contact, they working in like a whole big global. So like for certain projects, they may pay like 2 million or 3 million Australia dollar. So it's quite expensive. And when it comes to like a bear market, it's much cheaper. And I would say, actually at the moment, many like exchange they would say we can list you for free, but it's based on the quality of the project. Like if your project has proved the history or achievement or communities, then yes, just go ahead. It's pretty cheap or even free. Because like last October, I sit down with some like listing people like the CoinX. I sit down with them, so for them it's free. So there are other like big exchange. It depends on the market. Like you may decide which country your major users come from. So you may get a better chance to connect the exchange from that country. That's good for the exchange, also for yourself.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. And you know, a lot of these exchanges are getting a bit too greedy, and we want to, you know, provide a platform that can help, particularly local businesses and companies here in Australia to begin with. Because let's face it, we are still fairly new to the market, so we do want to, you know, do a bit of ethical business. We don't really want to be out there to rip off exactly. And you know, look at Binance, for example. They're charging, you know, $1 million or whatever it is for the token. But it wasn't until the whole of the internet started saying you guys are ripping off people, charging that much amount of money, that they started thinking, oh, okay, maybe we should start charging less. But yeah, it's only because businesses were prepared to pay that much. That's why they continue to do that. So it really depends, you know, until people start rallying, then that's when, you know, those businesses probably look at doing something a little bit more practical. And you know, we have listed a few tokens where we're being very reasonable about that also, where we've, you know, even done a couple of free ones as well. So
But we're very interested in small
we-
businesses across Australia, basically tokenising their business.
Yeah.
And I see it as like a big next wave that businesses, like imagine if you sort of turned 20% of your business to be owned by the customers that buy from you, and you could now start treating those tokens as security tokens, but they could also be called loyalty tokens, or they could also be called payment systems, like payment tokens. Like it kind of blurs the lines and creates a lot more respect in this next wave of business. Because at the moment, big businesses, Fortune 500 companies are kind of like the only ones that have access to IPO technology. Now this whole thing is being pushed to anyone in the world to be able to IPO their business, because that's what you're doing. You're basically, creating a marketplace for your business to be bought and sold. So it's pretty. I think it's just like the next sort of wave that's going to slowly happen, and people discover, oh yeah, you can do this. That's pretty cool.
Okay.
Technology is like a drone. You can do all sorts of things.
So the next topic is the difference between an ERC20 and a non-ERC20 token. Because if you are considering creating your own token, and you just generally want to know what is the difference, because let's face it, most of the tokens are built on the ERC20 standard. However, protocols or coins such as Bitcoin, Neo, EOS, Tron are not. They're not built on the Ethereum network, therefore are not easily integrated to most exchanges and need a little more node work in order to get listed. Sorry. Talking a little bit fast and I'm going over my head a bit. But yeah, so for example, like the Waves, has anybody heard of the Waves token? Yeah. So on there, they they even have their own option to create your own Waves token and that sort of thing. And that's sort of why I know. And basically, I know that with Waves,
They were the first system
yeah.
that you could actually create tokens on before Ethereum, like create custom tokens, the Waves platform. But it just never took off because there was no standard for a token for exchanges to integrate. So that's why the Ethereum token kicked off, like the ERC20 token, because all of a sudden all exchanges around the world had a standard to follow, and they could all work towards it and make sure that their exchange could be compatible with it.
Yeah,
Waves just didn't have that type of standard.
Yeah, it just means the exchanges themselves have to go to that extra effort to find out, the technical aspects of that particular protocol and the node, and they've got to do a lot more research. Whereas an ERC20 token, it's so much easier for exchanges just to integrate because they're already understanding of that particular script. And
Yeah, I just want to point out, Waves token is their own standard, but it's the opinion of those developers. Whereas ERC20 was a standard that everybody got to vet and say, oh yeah, okay, I agree with that. So it was kind of like more accepted as ERC20 was launched. So it got to, more eyeballs saw it as a standard.
okay.
Do you guys have any questions at this point? What did you guys come here to learn?
Just like an off-topic kind of question. Like,
Yeah.
all these new ICOs that are coming out, there's like all the new platforms that are competing with Ethereum, and they won't be at 20 obviously.
Yeah.
So, like, what benefits would they have to launch on these new platforms over Ethereum when it's like going to be harder for them without the standard, like you're saying, the 20 standard, all exchanges and all this stuff like that? Like, will it be worthwhile to, like, obviously, some will have better technology that can scale better, or in the future, maybe. Will it be worthwhile for them to use it on more correct?
I think we're just in a Cambrian explosion of technology ideas. I think, it's not really certain what's going to happen yet.
Yeah.
Ethereum's is a blockchain system that doesn't solve privacy, and that's kind of a big issue. So maybe there'll be a system that has solved all that, and there can be interoperability across everything. Maybe there are these perfect world systems that will come out, like what was it called, the random token. Chris, you know what it is? There was another Definity. I thought Definity was going to be the one. And that's people that consensus and in Ethereum we're thinking, wow, Definity is really going to be the thing, but that hasn't kicked off either. I think it's just going to be a world of lots of different things, lots of different platforms, but I think the platforms that are going to win in the end is the one that offers the most sort of like sovereign power to the individual, to the agent. And so that's why I think, you know, I'm saying this now, I think Holochain has got a huge future because of that reason, that Holochain is all about agent-centric sovereignty. So you don't have to agree to any standard that anyone creates. You can take your own standard and change it yourself, and if that works for you and it works for other people, then you all of a sudden just form a whole new ecosystem. So yeah, I think it's going to evolve past all of these blockchain systems. But at the moment, we've just got to work with the technology that is out there and is currently mainstream.
I mean, whatever it does evolve to, we will adapt, and we have the framework. Yeah, we have the framework there, and it's very easy just to integrate the new technologies when they come available. Particularly, Holochain is, you know, something that's a little bit out there, that's more.
It's fringe technology, but yeah, it's pick it as being something that's going to become very mainstream.
Yeah.
And we've been already looking about how do we make MetaMorph Holochain compatible, so that we want to be the first exchange that can be compatible with these new, very fringe, newer technologies.
So we're looking at the, does anybody else have questions on that, or like there are other standard tokens, right? So there's, you know, you've got your R token, you've got your Polymath have brought out a token, or bringing out one that's called St.20, I believe. That's the kind that they're bringing out. But there's there's like ER1441. I think that's another security-based.
On Ethereum, I think there's 3 security-based token standards, and then another guy called me up from Sydney saying he's written all his own security-based contracts on Ethereum. So I don't know. I think there's, you know, after that big hype of utility-based tokens, which was just a workaround to, you know, not have to comply with the legal side of things. You know, and then lots of people got burned last year. I think now people are coming back to, oh, maybe society, the way it does, well, this is what I was thinking anyway. Maybe the way society does work has reasons for it all. And so, I was always wanting to make a token represent something, or own something, or have rights to something. But that's what securities law is all about.
Yeah, I mean, we're currently working with OX Project. So we're pretty much using the tokens that are compatible with them as well. Now ERC20 is one of them. However, you know, if they decide to later start implementing security tokens to their platform, then I'm sure we can find a way to work around that as well. And even look towards, you know, protocols such as Holochain alongside that. But yeah. So, daily trading volume formula part 1. Just wanted to go over a few things here which we believe will help you guys get your head around some other things. Yeah, sure, you can go through.
Can I go there?
Yep.
And then you can switch over again. Can't remember what I wrote. Did I write?
I think I wrote that bit.
Alright, okay, well, you're right, having a unique product that can help people solve a particular solution, having active GitHub mention, product updates. Yeah, so this is the part that I was sort of big on, is adding rights to the token. Like, if you think about it, a token is just a membership. So if someone has, you can say things like, yes, you can have access to something if you hold 50 tokens in your wallet, or if you give me 50 tokens. And that's just, if you think about it, if you give me 51 tokens, that's like level 51 of a membership system. So think of a token ecosystem, or building a token as like a giant, very complicated membership system. They're buying membership of something. So people will buy a token because of a specific right, something that they'll get access to, something that they want. And you know, it's kind of like, the other thing to think about, I think, is that there's so many people on the planet, there's so many unique things that people can make, but there's also so many things that can be created by really efficient systems right now. So I think that the membership tokens of the future will be actually groups of tribes of people coming together. all with tokens of a specific reason or a purpose. I think tokens will be very much behind the purpose of something, because a very efficient system that can create a product like a McDonald's burger at the moment or whatever, a small business will never be able to compete with that, or just like a hammer, whatever it might be. But a very efficient system will never be able to aggregate power of lots of people doing something for some bigger reason. So think of tokens and your token system that you're going to build as a way to aggregate power and everyone owning some of those tokens because of something that they care about. So I think we're going to go through a society of we're going to kind of you can kind of already see it happening in society, that we're all actually becoming more tribal. Like if you look at Brexit, people are sort of clinging back to what they know. So before they were a Euro citizen, and now they're clinging down to being a national citizen again, United Kingdom or whatever. So, and that's because we're in sort of the human species is in basically an identity crisis, I think, and they're trying to sort of rethink about, well, what does it mean to be a human? So, if you want a token to succeed in the future, I think in the near future, it's going to be about pondering about those types of questions as well. So a security token is a specific legal right. So it's basically I'm not a lawyer, but from my understanding, it gives you a right to something, and this is in the definition of the legal frameworks that we live within. So the right to legal equity, which is something, as we've realized that utility tokens, a lot of it's kind of fluff. Well, what's not fluff? And basically we have a beautiful legal system at the moment that actually has kept a lot of the fluff out of the marketplace. And so, legally owning an asset, and so that's why, I've teamed up with a law firm. If the asset...
Sorry to cut you there as well. I mean, it was only a matter of time before, the legal structure here, particularly in Australia as well, would, have to really pull their sleeves up and kind of, bring out, a really adaptable, in a way, sort of set of rules that, tokens and cryptocurrencies companies could follow suit on. And so having particularly the security token kind of community evolve this year, I think will be one big thing. And one key area which Tom is involved with, the legal side, is definitely going to help solve that issue. So we're quite happy to work with Tom and the legal firm in that area this year. But yeah, definitely if you guys are looking at the legal side, you should look into what Tom has to offer there. So, kind of giving you a bit of a pitch there as well.
Oh, thank you. Well, this adds a lot more credibility, but I don't really mind. I mean, I've slipped so much time in my life. Like, I've been a sort of anti-government person, and I'm pro-government. Like, it's always dependent on who you meet and stuff like that. But basically, what I think that is, we have a society for a reason, and it does kind of work. And so, trying to tick all the boxes of all the regulatory compliant or regulatory requests also helps with people who don't understand, investing and things like that. I did lose my train of thought on something that was pretty cool. But anyway, if the asset produces a profit, that profit could be paid as dividends, and you might write into the contract that is you get a right to that dividend. And if you have a legal firm bless it, or you have a regulatory body, or you follow the regulatory guidance of a body, that just adds a lot more sort of like firmness of the deal. That yes, people do realise that they do get a right to those monthly or weekly dividends, or yearly. As a token security holder, you may have rights to that dividend. Yeah, okay. But yeah, this link here, Louis, who is the solicitor of the law firm, or one of them, he created a talk, which was the last talk, and he actually went through what is a security according to current sort of like definitions. And basically what blockchain has really pointed out is that nobody really knows what a security is, and it's actually just a giant grey area. He points out the differences between the Australian law, the US law, and the European law. And Australian law has 3 different types of definitions. European law took the US law and tried to make sense of the US law. So basically we're still in a grey area of what security is, and so now finally hard coding things is allowing the whole world to agree what this idea of security really is. So that talk is worth watching if you want legal advice on one legal opinion of a lawyer who has, of a financial services lawyer who's got a wealth of background, knowledge in all this.
And I think there'll also be things such as bridging in the future, like even if you launched an ERC20 token or utility token now, there may be some, correct me if I'm wrong, there might be some sort of smart bridging in place where they can even create harness that security token method alongside it, or how do you think that would work?
I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know how it's going to work, but basically, we're going to go through working out what all these definitions that we've created for ourselves in society. I don't know. But one thing I do know is that we're very lucky to be in Australia and doing this, because Australia regulators have just taken a real they've just recently decided, oh wow, okay, they've kind of woken up and realised, oh wow, this is actually a chance for Australia to basically become a financial capital of the world. And so Louis actually, been asked to give advice to, all because he's done all this groundwork about all the major legal regulatory bodies around the world. Australia are just opening up their doors and saying, look, we want to be the next Switzerland of this stuff. So they're going to be really light. And then there's Australia and there's Delaware, basically, I think are going to be the two places where these security tokens are really going to kick off. Just Delaware, the state. So we're really lucky to actually be living in Australia. Whereas all the other ones, all the other countries and stuff, they're just not not nimble enough, and they're just not ready. They haven't understood it enough. Australia's done a lot of work. It's amazing that we've got one of the biggest Ethereum development communities here. We've got one of the biggest holochain development communities. We're just a small enough country that's had enough conversations with regulators, and developers have had enough conversations for all the information to filter through and for things to be understood much earlier than other countries. That's what I've seen has happened. So I'm pretty excited that we're going to just become like a Switzerland of security tokens, from my understanding. So other countries around the world will probably come to Australia, where we're also a trusted, highly regulated environment where other countries will trust, the decisions that we've made. That's my perception of it, but we'll see. All right, well, I'll let you talk about this.
Okay, sure. Musical chairs. Okay. So, marketing of your own token. Okay, so yeah, we talked about the community update, so community being an important part. I think if you have a community and you're updating your community quite regularly, which is what we're doing also, it's great for the following just to know what's going on, but also it enhances the value of the product itself and where you're going with it all. And so that is a very important part of the marketing process. It's not about hype. It's not about the traditional marketing or business relies upon a lot of hype. There are cryptos that create tokens, and that's all they do is they just hype up their token, and they're up here one day and the next day they're totally dead. So it's all about just because at the end of the day, people just want to know what progress you're making with the business. It could be with anything. So if you look at a typical business that's not relied on tokens at all, just brick and mortar, maybe it might be on the stock exchange. They purely rely just on that sort of thing. Sorry, I was thinking about something else.
Think about all the tokens. There's a website called Dead Tokens, I think, deadtokens.com. And there's so many, you see 2,000 tokens on CoinMarketCap. So to be on CoinMarketCap is a success out of the 15,000, 20,000 tokens that are out there that just never made it. And there's a lot of people that I know in Australia that invested in tokens that went down to 0 value. So to even be in the top 2,000, or I think whatever we are, top 900 or 1,000, is just a massive success, especially in a bear market where the whole world started to turn away from this stuff and actually freak out.
I mean, we launched in a bear market, and if you look at most of the coins, they're pretty much died out because that's all they relied upon was just hype. Whereas, and a lot of them don't even have a product. So we made it a number one priority that we just wanted the product out there no matter what, regardless of price. So that's all we're focused on, and inevitably that's what happens is price just follows. So very important to actually have a product. Development updates. So that's pretty much what I was talking about there. And then the thing is, so for example, if you launch a product, let's say, or a token, and again, you've got a development team to create the product, getting reviews, demos, could be video-based reviews of demos, case studies via the community is super important as well. So that definitely helps. And being active at events, workshops, and just explaining the benefits of blockchain is super good to get the word out and make yourself present pretty much everywhere possible. Engagement, so things such as Telegram or having your own chat on your website that users can talk to you on and find out where you're at, or they might have specific questions. So traders and even investors, they're very spare of the moment people. If they got spare $1,000 in their hand, they just want to quickly know something there and then. If you can't give them a quick answer, they'll probably go and spend that $1,000 somewhere else. So it's very important that with chat, was that sorry?
The live chat.
Oh yeah,
That's probably a big reason that we're always very helpful on the website. So we've got a live chat that actually pops up and helps people straight away. If they're on that website for 8 seconds, you should have something pop up after 8 seconds saying, I can help you because you're learning from your customers that way, and you can help sort of support the proper community and help them understand what they're trying to do. Why do they go to your website?
Yeah. And that's how we've also realised how over time trading will change and evolve via engagement, because humans really do want to be interactive. They don't want to just sit behind a screen and that sort of thing. So
the whole world's not going to look at candlesticks. That's from our research. We realise.
Most definitely.
People do want to trade. People do want to chat. They want to do their trades automatically in the chat system themselves. Because they don't even have to think about the word trading or exchanging. Yeah. You can still get everything done, tracking all this stuff on logbooks and stuff. But I don't think it's going to be exchanges.
Because there's a lot of people that just like holding. They don't like trading. So and holders still like to find out what's going on in their spare time every day or whatever. So they just want to have that constant interactivity where possible. And so programmers offering real world use, that's the other thing too. So if your product is not just a product but actually provides real world use, that's when you're going to see mass adoption. So getting usage on the product via the community, very important, and offering feedback to improve where necessary. So having your community actually give you feedback on how they're doing with the product, what roadblocks they're hitting, that sort of thing, equally as important. And so to top this off, Tom's going to take over here. He wants to talk to you guys about a idea that we came up with, which was more or less like an experiment. You want to swap seats again?
Okay. Do you have any questions at this point? This will be like a 10-minute experiment, thought experiment basically. Does anyone else want to cover anything else while we're here? Otherwise, this is it. We're good? All right, cool. So, building these token economies is basically about, the reason why all these tokens were created was because people were sick about having if you think about it, people were sick of having conversations about lack of funding. So the token economy that we live in now, the Australian dollar system, is broken for a lot of people in society, the fiat currency system. And so, humanity was forced to start building new trading tools. That's why Bitcoin was born, that's why Ethereum was born. But if you think about it, all token systems, including security systems or fiat systems, they all actually have a purpose, and they're all created by a small group of people generally. And if you can add feedback loops into these token systems in the future, where now we have digital technology that can manage them, you can create feedback systems that now will always make sure that they survive, and so that they're adjusted, like the little dials and knobs on these dynamic token systems that get created in the future will always serve everybody according to the way they need to be served. And so this is like Ethereum, Bitcoin, EOS, they all create these static token systems, but the actual world is very dynamic and changing all the time. And so that's why I see things like Holochain in future creating these dynamic feedback systems and token systems or value flow exchange systems. So this is an example of a sort of a prehistoric feedback loop that we're going to create on Ethereum, but we're also going to launch it on this exchange where this token that we create will actually have a real value. But the cool thing is that you guys all here can actually be token owners of this contract as well. So when you launch a token on Ethereum, one of the fields on the smart contract on the ERC20 token, if you haven't noticed, is the owner. So there's actually an Ethereum address, a private Ethereum address as the owner of that contract. And one of the other functions on those contracts is if you can mint tokens or not. And you can put that minting function only available to the Ethereum, the token, the contract owner of that contract, like the token owner. Or you can actually put that minting function under lots of people. So you can put it under, like, thing on Ethereum, you can put it up to about 150 people. On Holochain, you can do it a lot bigger. But the thing is that there are times when a currency system or think of shares in a company, they do need to create more shares. But you should only really be creating those shares according to the feedback of the people that are holding those shares or that currency system. So say, for instance, think of like maybe a good simple example for everyone to understand is, you've probably seen the value of the Australian dollar go up and down over the years. And that's, depending on how many Australian tokens we create, or you've probably seen the value of shares go up and down over the years, and that's probably dependent on how many shares are on the market. So a company might go through so I'm trying to point out that there's a very blurred line between a currency, a security, a token. All of this is all just sort of one spectrum of a lot of different dials and knobs that you can change on these dynamic systems in the future. And so let's just say, for instance, we stood our foot into the ground and we said, okay, let's create a meetup token. So the first thing is, what is the purpose of the token? And like with the purpose of the Australian dollar token is, I know one is to create a stable trading tool for Australians, but it has been pretty stable, but it's also subject to lots of other factors as well. And so Australian tokens get minted for certain reasons. So if you look at the financial policy of the fiat currency system, we actually have it. It's actually, you can't really call it a financial policy, it's actually a minting policy. So we have a certain number of rules in that financial policy where we decide when we create more Australian tokens. And we do that when certain banks have rights to creating more Australian tokens just for someone who wants to build a house. And there's a bunch of rules behind all that, lots of checks and compliance procedures as well. But what I'm saying is that Australian tokens, dollars do get minted for certain reasons. And I think that all Australians should be involved in that minting conversation. And so this is a small experiment to sort of experience the power of like minting. And you get to see it on Ethereum live. So there's a, on Etherscan. You guys heard of Etherscan before? Yeah, cool. Yeah, so you get to actually look at all the Ethereum tokens. So what I love about Ethereum is that it is very transparent. And you can go and look at any of these contracts, like let's say for instance, I'll just go to any of these tokens, charts. No, not charts. Explorer. So you can go and look at any of these Ethereum tokens, and you can actually look at all the holders, but you can also look at the total supply, so you can see if the supply is increasing or decreasing. And what we're going to do, so not with MetaMorph, but we're going to create a new token over the next coming weeks. Where is it? And as that minting function gets created, we're all going to see the token supply increase. So let's say, for instance, we're going to create a token with a meetup token. So the plan is here to grow this meetup, obviously. And I mean, in the past, we've run Ethereum meetups with 250 people, and that was during the hype time. But we're going to slowly nurture a community now and power it, fuel it with a meetup token in Brisbane. And so one of the things is now, what if everyone got this token, was awarded the token, so incentivized to come along to a meetup, and we could give it all sorts of rights. That's the next section here. We could incentivize people to come along to a meetup. Like at the moment, we incentivize people by free food and beer and things like that. But what if is that really what you want? Like maybe you want to be able to have get awarded a token, and then be able to sell it on the exchange, because now we've got the exchange capability as well, and go and sell it to somebody else who wants it. Or maybe you want to be able to prove that you've come to every single meetup, and then at some point when this whole lab, this blockchain lab sort of grows, there'll be new capacities here, and because the most loyal people that come along here, they've come along every time, we basically should be rewarding them in some way. So maybe they get access to new capacities that the whole blockchain lab gets access to. Or maybe you want a week's worth of work desk space or something like that, or you just want access to meeting rooms. So you'll be able to pay for that in this meetup token. So the idea is to put everyone on as owners and agree these rules on Google Docs over the next lot of meetups. And it's just an experiment, guys, totally experiment, but this is now a liquid approach to actually being able to convert these tokens into Australian dollars or Bitcoin or Ether as well. So one of our purposes, obviously, is to grow the meetups. Experimental, so others can see how this whole process works from start to finish. So it's hard for me to just try and simulate the whole conversation and just tell you what might happen. So I'd like you to be a part of it if you want to be a part of this, and experience this sort of whole feedback loop that can happen in this multi-signature process. And this may lead to bigger things, maybe we can build a crowd of 1,000 people or 2,000 people, just because we're fueling it with a token that we can actually back with real value as well. So yeah, this is really something just to think about, and also for you to think about in your own business. Like maybe you want some of your customers or some of your repeat customers or most loyal customers to also be minters of your token that might own 50% of your, that token might represent 20 or 10% or 100% of your business. Does that make sense? In a way, so this is sort of like airy-fairy stuff, but we'll bless it with a legal firm as well, and it'll be all believable. People present at MetaMorph event. So I was starting to think about, well, what are the rights to a token? And when you're in the law firm, all the lawyer's doing is looking at, well, what rights does this new status give the person access to, or what? The contract's all about working what parties have rights to what things. That's all it is. And now we're not doing anything different. We're just using digital technology to represent those rights, and they just need to be sort of made obvious. I guess the rights need to be made really, really obvious, so that there's no what do you call it? Disputes. That's it's a dispute management system, really.
I just slipped a KYC in the second bullet point.
No worries. So
just to test out the whole security KYC side of thing as well.
So if we were to create a meetup token that we all owned here, and I'm happy to do it, we're happy to put it on the exchange. The next question is that Yeah, so yeah, obviously we have to comply with KYC and we don't want to get in trouble. So to be an owner of this token that we will launch, you obviously have to send in, we just have to have on file who you are, basically. So then the next question is, now we create another rule that every time someone comes to a meetup, they get a token inside their Ethereum wallet. Who's got an Ethereum wallet, by the way? Has everyone got one? Like Ethereum compliant wallet? Cool. So then we're going to get a receptionist here in a couple of weeks. And so as people walk in, the receptionist is going to go, oh, hi, how you going? Oh, have you got your token? So they're going to reward people with these tokens. And then you're obviously going to accumulate them. So the first question is, well, from day one, how many tokens should we create? Does anyone know? Does any numbers come to mind?
88.
I said 100. 100?
Maybe you could wait and see how many people actually respond and say that they want to be a part of it. Maybe put a number against it. If you get 15 people or everyone's responded, just another.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, we're open to suggestions. I think we wouldn't create a number without everyone also agreeing, and that would also be part of the whole experiment to actually make it a fair voting system.
Poll on Telegram, is that the best way? Yeah, so we don't have a Telegram group for this meetup area, but we'll create one and send one out, I think, for like a Vestix lab. And then we'll start putting these polls out, and I think if anyone knows how to create a poll or
Twitter's good,
Twitter, yeah, just so that then we can get feedback, because we'll just do exactly what everyone's saying that we're going to do, and we could actually make this a security token. That's the other cool thing we can. But then the next question is, well, how do we back it up with value? Well, the only value I know is that we can provide legal services. We have an AFSL, we have a securities license, we have a loaning license, like a debenture license. So we can do things like that, and we're happy to offer services, legal services that way.
You guys must be excited that you're the first ones to attend this meetup to get rights to this token.
And then it's about, well, what other people are willing to provide services in exchange for maybe tokens or something like that. So we have to get all the foundations sort of to the point where it's going to actually hold value. Because just the people in this room, maybe it won't provide enough value. But that's the experiment that we're willing to go through, basically. What do you guys think?
Maybe your meetup will become so big that you'll have so many members and it'll be really valuable to have time in your meetup because you'll have so many people here and they'll actually pay to give you that time. So therefore, you give your token and you get time in your meetup. You become meetup.
So talking time.
Yeah. And like you said, offering meetup rooms and stuff like that, I guess it's
maybe, you can pay for the meetup space here in tokens. And if you come along and maybe you get, if you acquire 50 tokens and you actually have the whole meetup space for yourself to do your own thing or something like that.
Or pitch your company.
Pitch your company.
Yeah, that's cool.
What else comes to mind, guys?
I have a question about incentivizing people coming with tokens rather than just coming for the sake of coming. Does it attract, does it dilute the audience? Does it attract a different person that's got a different reason for being here?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know.
I think it's a good point.
Doesn't take away from the gifting community.
It leads to your first point, your purpose. So you want to drive more people to the Brisbane Meetup. I think that's a really good
And why?
reason.
And what quality
Why do you want to drive
here?
people? Do you
Yeah.
want to drive people to adopt the token, or do you want to drive people to
To
use
contribute.
iChain? You want to drive people to use MetaMorph? Or
Yeah.
that's
Do you want
very
people
different
down the
things.
street right now that just got a free token and don't know anything?
Yeah, they're good questions. Don't know. That's been also a big dilemma in my brain. Do I want to create this metric world, or do I want to create a world where people just do things because they care about something and they don't have to get assistance from a computer? That's an issue.
The other question I have, and it might be a dumb question, is say you go, we're going to create 100, I don't really understand the token creation process. Say you go, we're going to create 100 tokens and there's 15 people in this room now. What do you do with the other 85 tokens right now?
We can put them in a shared holding account. So the way multi-signature works is that The lingo behind multi-signatures that, you know, have you ever been part of a bank account where you've got 2 or 3 have to sign, or 4 or 5 have to sign before money gets moved? So on Ethereum, it's pretty standard. Like most of the contracts are mostly under a multi-signature account. And yeah, what it means is like if someone gets hacked, or you know, at least the tokens don't disappear. But it means that, you know, there's a governance process or a formula that when tokens get moved. So yeah, this is the experiment.
And it's
on
also
the fringe of it
a
now.
bit of a learning curve as well.
It's a learning
because-
curve, yeah.
The learning curve aspect is.
It's just educational.
Yeah, I think the great thing about the learning part of it is you'll be one step ahead of, like, let's say as an investor point of view, because if Lady decides to invest in other tokens that are more governed and more, you know, have a DAO structure and things like that in place, you'll be more understanding, and then you might actually find better investments because of this learning structure. I mean, could that also
Oh,
be?
definitely. Like you'll probably only start buying into token systems or security systems that do have this type of structure, or you know, some type of distributed governance system. Yeah, I mean, for me, I've never bought into any tokens, like ever, because none of them have these multi-signature systems, which is the next level. I think it's just people don't trust what's going on out there. What do you think, Chris?
Well, so I've just been learning a little bit about holochain at the moment this week.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this would be possible, but would it be great if we had rules that meant the tokens were created by the group coming here? So we would come and go, alright, we're editing now, and the tokens would then get created in that moment by the consensus of all the people being here. And all that's required maybe in the rule is people coming to this particular place to do it. I mean, I don't know, that's not an ERC20 token, but
We could develop a meetup with
that, yeah.
And see people that were involved here or can offer other services that could be used. For example, I'm a licensed plumber and gas fitter. Maybe there's a meetup, you guys need some plumbing work, we could use the tokens.
Good point, yeah. Love that idea. Helping local businesses.
So local business services.
Top of the food chain.
Master as well.
Yeah, so yeah, it's food for thought, really.
I think that goes back to your point earlier around how do we drive ownership of small business from the customer base.
Yeah,
And if you use what Ash said around how we have different, everyone's room, I'm assuming has some sort of local title, small business.
yeah,
How do we take the security token or whatever we're going to call it and use that as an incentive for people to use other people's services within this group?
yeah,
So it creates this little ecosystem so people trade between each other, not tokens, but services. As
Almost
opposed
like a barter.
yeah, it takes it back to that caveman idea of how do we barter and how do we market as opposed to, oh, I'm just going to go through white pages and not look at something. We'll go and do it.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to the why, the purpose. Do you want more people here, or do you want a greater depth of connection between the people that are already here?
Sure. The worry is if we get more people, we need bigger offices. You're right, it's not necessarily a good thing having 10,000 people in the
That
room.
don't know each other.
And that's why as well, I think we decided just to make it Brisbane, otherwise we could have done all of Queensland or whatever,
I'm not even from Brisbane, so
but no. Where are you from?
Mullumbimby,
Oh, okay, oh, it's nice out there.
kind of close.
yeah. No, thanks for the feedback. Unless anyone else has anything else to say, I mean, what's coming to my brain is that some type of token that represents, maybe we help businesses tokenize their businesses, and then this token represents cheaper services to those businesses that have been tokenized. That's kind of like a simple formula in my brain that is simple enough to do.
And even if you are from Mullumbimby, perhaps it could be a simple thing as, you know, renting a space out your way whenever we go on holidays, or, you know, so I don't think maybe as well it could be like purely just Brisbane based businesses.
Could just be
Yeah,
Australian businesses.
I mean, it could be,
Yeah.
say, the Brisbane Meetup token, but could maybe still be usable, or we could maybe still data. Yeah, that's just an idea I came up with as well.
Well, that's another thing that came to my mind is if you encourage the other meetup communities to do one too, and then there could be some kind of
Yeah.
trade.
And then I feel like there's a standard that needs to, just like we've got a token trading standard on Ethereum, that there needs to be some sort of standard or rules of engagement that each of these meetup tokens, have to follow in order to be able to be interoperable and trade amongst each other automatically without people even realizing that they're. And then what I'm experiencing is that, or thinking is that, say for instance I come across the plumbing business and I do want to pay with tokens or whatever we call these things. I might be scanning, you might have a price list there, but I might scan with a QR code. It might be like X amount, $1,000 or something that I got to pay, but that $1,000 is if I go and scan it at that current day, it might, it'll only equal like $800 in tokens or something like that, but I'm empowering another ecosystem that we all care about or we all pre-agree or something like that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of work and conversations, but yeah.
I don't know if it's just me, but we keep on talking about tokens, but not many of us talk about the governance of the organization. So I think the bigger focus should be probably on governance and what actually we do with the tokens, instead of just talking about, okay, we have these tokens, how many of them do we have, how do we spread them? I think the governance is the basis here.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I put down the bottom here that this is part of a much bigger conversation for proper governance and ecosystem flow of token systems. In terms of governance, I think Stephen Alexander is the guy who's got his head around that. So if you see him coming and having talks at some point, I know he's actually going to get funded by the government to talk here about governance, and he's had the last 3 years of Series token experience as well, because he's sort of piecing it all together now a lot better. Yeah, it's a big. I think tokens is just a small portion of value flows, which is a small portion of governance, and that's what I think the real conversation is. So, I think.
So who wants a t-shirt?
I want a t-shirt.
Who put their hands up first? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, it was 4. There you go.
Woo!
So you don't get a choice. You just get whatever's there. Thanks.
Maybe extra small is too small for me.
I love free shirts. I didn't buy this.